This is CBC Here and Now.
It's hard to sit here like at 6 this morning when I was here sitting and watching the water rise, to watch everything I worked hard for, pardon the expression, go down the tubes, down the drain.
People around here, I guess, are resilient. They're depending on themselves to getting things done.
The ferry's not crossing right now, so we're stuck by the nature.
A state of emergency for the town itself, we're not at.
Parts of the Trans-Canada Highway completely washed away.
A torrential rainstorm cuts off all access to Port aux Basques. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Of course, our top story is the major storm that has pummeled the southwest coast of the island.
I just more or less said, this is going to hurt, braced, and rode it out.
Rode it out for sure. That's what a driver in Doyle's said to himself last night when the road underneath his truck gave way, collapsing beneath him.
That's an incredible story, and we're going to get to that a little later. First, the rainfall and wind warnings, they continue tonight for the southwest coast. Let's go to our crew on the ground in Port aux Basques. Peter Cowan is there, and he, like many others, stranded in the town due to these road washouts. So, Peter, lots of damage, lots of cleanup today.
Yeah, and in fact, it's a developing situation here. Just a couple minutes, a helicopter flew overhead, and I was just chatting with the mayor, and he said this is one that the RCMP arranged in order to get a couple of people who were in the Overfalls area. They were trapped because of the washouts, and so they airlifted them here to Port aux Basques so they'd at least be in a larger center. So certainly some of the people who've been affected by the weather here, and everyone around town seems to have been affected in some way or another, and a lot of people mopping out some wet basements. As you sort of drove around town today, you could see a lot of people out and about surveying the damage and taking a look at what was happening. And, you know, I met up with Wade Osmond, who had a big pile of water in his front yard this morning, and he was really worried about where it was all going to go and his house inside. He ended up with a couple centimeters of water in his basement. And the struggle has been, you know, the rain keeps coming. It just doesn't stop.
Expecting the worst when I got here at 6 o'clock this morning. Actually came in and I see what you see now, or probably just a little bit more, which was pretty good. Just after 7, when the tide rose, it started. And I was expecting the worst. At 200 millimeters of water, I mean, you know, you've got to expect something. It's not going to be all peaches and cream, right? Yesterday was a frantic time to get everything up off the floor, washer, dryers, fridges, you know, things like that. And but it's done, and I'm satisfied. I mean, I not much I could do. It is, like I said, it is what it is, and we had to deal with it as it comes. It's not that bad right now, other than what you see right here. But we also in the backside over here we have a very big brook that runs out of a pond up on the back of the hill there. And that thing is ready to break its berm right now. And just if that breaks, then we're in trouble. It's hard to sit here like at 6 this morning when I was here sitting and watching the water rise, to watch everything that I worked hard for, pardon the expression, go down the tubes, down the drain. But it is what it is, and we had to deal with it and take it as it comes, and you know, it is. You got to give the town a good thumbs up. They do their due diligence with this, and they're doing a good job. I hope everybody stays safe, warm, stay off the roads, let everybody do their thing. This will be gone in a couple of hours, hopefully, and everything will be okay.
Well, and you had to stay off the roads because the big issue has been the Trans-Canada Highway, which has been washed out in at least 4 places. One of them they can't even get to survey the damage, so they don't even know how bad it's going to be. And that's one of the big concerns is, you know, how long is this community going to be cut off? Because there's also dealing with road washouts to the east, to some of the communities there that can't make it in to Port aux Basques. But here in town, there are some people who would like to get out. For example, a couple of Quebec construction workers who were done their work, and now they don't have a ferry to be able to leave on.
We've been here to Wednesday past week. We're supposed to work in the Newfoundland area, but now our work's all done. We want to go back home. The problem is that the ferry is not crossing right now. So we're stuck by the nature.
And do you know when you'll be able to leave?
We're not sure yet. We think maybe Tuesday will be possible, but we're still waiting the response of Marine Atlantic.
We're waiting for Marine Atlantic not only to figure out a plan for restoring service here, but also how they're going to get all those goods in North Sydney to the rest of Newfoundland, because they're not going out over the Trans-Canada Highway. So they do have a backup plan for Argentia. They're just waiting to see what the assessments of the damage. And really, they can't assess the damage because the rain just keeps on coming down here. So let's bring in Ashley, because I think what everyone wants to know is how much rain have we had, and more importantly, when's it all going to stop? Ashley?
Yeah, Peter, it's been an impressive amount of 5 millimeters of rainfall. That was right within the 100 to 200 millimeters of rain that was expected to fall. Port aux Basques not far behind there, 149.8 millimeters. And then we did see some significant rain as well along the strait in Labrador. Red Bay, Lanzaloo, all 70 to 90 millimeters of rain. Stephenville recorded 17.2 millimeters. That stopped reporting at about 2 o'clock, but you can just see the difference. Stephenville not that much further north and seeing significantly less rain. So certainly still into the southwest. Now we do have those rainfall warnings still in place for the southwest, anticipating that these will end. The rain has certainly let up from what it was earlier today, expecting maybe another 20 to 30 millimeters in the higher elevations, but significantly more likely fell in those higher elevations. We just don't have any gauges to figure out how much did fall, but that should start to make its way down the mountains over the next well, who knows, over the next 24 hours, let's say. But the wind warning still in place. We're looking at those winds gusting in the Wreck House area, though, only about 100 kilometers per hour through the night tonight. Conditions will improve as we head through the day tomorrow. I'll get into those details when I come back. Peter?
This would normally be one of the main ways that you get off the Trans-Canada Highway and into Port aux Basques, but you can see why no one is able to do it, even if the highway was open. Believe it or not, this is actually lower than it was before. It was almost a couple of feet higher, and that created some problems when cars tried to drive through. The advice from experts has been don't try and drive through deep water like this, because what could happen? You'll get stuck like this person, who in fact had to get someone to give them a hand in order to get out of the car because of how deep the water is. Why are we seeing all this water? Well, one of the reasons is because it has nowhere to go. It's been raining now for 2 days. The drainage systems are full, and even though crews were busy with a backhoe trying to clear it out, it still hasn't been enough to clear this up completely. The good news, of course, is the Trans-Canada Highway is closed, so even if this ramp was working, you'd have nowhere to go.
Let's take a closer look at the situation. There are 4 primary road closures on the southwest coast due to flooding or complete washouts. The Trans-Canada Highway has washed out near Doyles, and heading west, there's flooding along the TCH between Cape Ray and North Branch. Now, the town of Port aux Basques also has flooding with an impassable road near the weigh scales in town and flooding along Route 470 toward Isle aux Morts. Well, the provincial government gave an update on road repairs this afternoon here, and as Meg Roberts is live with those details. So, Meg, it looks like a lot of work needs to be done.
Yeah, the pictures we're seeing today show some of the damage on the southwest coast. Officials say the situation is being monitored, and as soon as it's safe, crews will start to fix the damage. Engineers were on site today assessing the road conditions. And when asked how long cleanup could take, Transportation Minister Elvis Lovelace says the reality of fixing the roads is challenging, but contractors were contacted before the storm even hit.
But let me stress, this is not a 48-hour fix. It's a big storm, we know that, and but our crews are out there ready, out in the elements, and it's a challenging one, but one that we're ready for.
The good news is there have been no injuries reported, and as of now, as of now, there are no power outages as well.
Okay, Meg, so what about the supply situation? Are there any problems with delivering supplies?
Well, Premier Furey says officials are not currently concerned about supply shortages. The Marine Atlantic ferry crossing between Port aux Basques and North Sydney was cancelled today, as you heard Peter mention. However, Furey says Marine Atlantic has a contingency plan in case and will be making a decision about whether or not to move to Argentia.
There's been no damage whatsoever at that area. In fact, the weather has died down to the point where they're actually able to soon start traveling. The issue is once you get the cargo and people here, right now the road is the issue. So they're going to work in conjunction with transportation on how, what's the situation there. And obviously the difficulty is that it's an evolving situation. We don't know how long or what the extent of that is.
As we wait out the rest of the rain, the government is asking people to stay off the roads. If you have to go out, a barricaded road or bridge means it is not safe to pass. If you need emergency medical services, there is a helicopter on standby. Premier Furey said today the federal government has also been notified, as well as the Red Cross. Carolyn.
Meg, that's here now's Meg Roberts reporting live. Well, southern Labrador was also hit with some of the rain, causing damage to this road in town. The road leading to Tracy Hill is closed. Parts of Northbrook Road are damaged but passable. The town clerk tells CBC News the town lost electricity last night, but it was restored this morning.
And in Nova Scotia, the Cape Breton and Antigonish regions have been particularly hard hit by this storm system. Dozens have been forced from their homes and states of emergency declared. In Antigonish, more than 100 millimeters of rain fell, forcing about 30 residents to leave their homes in a trailer park. The RCMP has secured those homes while the floodwaters start to go down. The Red Cross is arranging emergency accommodations for anybody in need. Similar stories on Cape Breton Island. Officials say it could take several days, maybe even weeks, to repair the damage. I'm going to turn to COVID news now. Another person in this province has died from COVID-19. It's a man in the central area who was over 70 years of age. This makes the 18th death in the province. There are 4 new cases of COVID in the province. 2 are in the eastern region, 2 in central, and of the 4, 3 are contacts and 1 is related to international travel. There are currently 13 active cases in the province.
Well, police have ended the search for 2 hunters missing at sea. The 2 men from Gander left Lawrence Harbor more than a week ago to go tur hunting in the Bay of Exploits. Their 14-foot aluminum boat was recovered early on during the search, along with clothing and other personal items. The investigation remains open as a missing persons at sea case. People are asked to contact the RCMP in Grand Falls, Windsor with any further information or possible sightings.
Motorists on the Northern Peninsula are being warned to watch out for caribou. The Department of Fisheries, Forests and Agriculture says there have been many sightings between the St. Anthony Airport and Eddies Cove, as well as between the airport and Mainbrook. Caribou are expected to remain in the region throughout the winter. Drivers should slow down, stay vigilant, and avoid driving at dusk and dawn when those animals are most likely to be alongside the road.
Well, some positive financial news today. The provincial government is forecasting a big drop in Newfoundland and Labrador's deficit. The improvement is due to increased revenues, but as Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports, that money isn't coming from oil production.
The spring budget forecast the province would spend $826 million more than it took in. But the fall update released today forecasts a smaller deficit of $595 million. About $230 million less.
Mainly due to higher than expected corporate income tax revenue, mining and mineral tax rights tax revenue, and sales tax revenue.
The price of oil is expected to be $10 US more per barrel than was expected in last spring's budget. But Cody said it won't be a big factor in reducing the deficit.
Overall, oil royalties are up $23 million since budget 2021. Royalties are not just reliant on price, but also on production, which is forecast to be lower than we projected in budget 2021.
Reduced spending, down about $45 million, is also contributing to the deficit drop. The opposition says the reduced deficit is good news, but not something the government can take credit for.
The fact that, we've seen increased revenues from I would say mining royalties and corporate income tax I'm not sure that that's a result of any initiative that the government has done.
The finance minister said the government is heading in the right direction, but Siobhan Cody faced numerous questions about the plans the government has for the future. In 2018, the then Liberal government promised to double oil production by 2030. Today, Siobhan Cody said the government is moving towards a green transition, but she also said it hopes to develop new oil fields like Beta Nord. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, yesterday, Premier Andrew Furey announced over $35 million in funding for projects connected to the offshore industry. Now, the money is part of the $320 million oil and gas recovery fund that was announced by the federal and provincial governments last year. Now, this announcement came only 10 days after COP26, the UN climate change conference in Scotland, had ended. Furey emphasized the need for fossil fuels during the transition to renewable energy. The provincial NDP interim leader Jim Dinn questions the timing of the announcement and where the province's transition plan is.
Either the Premier is remarkably tone deaf or he has an enormous sense of irony, one way or the other. But the fact is, what we have yet to hear is this government commit to a transition, a just transition. Oil production is not stopping today, but if the Premier is acknowledging that we've got 10 years left, my God, we should be if our next priority is to come up with a plan.
Other story now, Brad Gushew's curling crew is in Saskatoon this week.
Yes, the rink is fighting to win the right to represent Canada at the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing.
For the win! Four guys who curl out of St. John's are currently sitting on top of the leaderboard with a perfect 5-0 record. This is footage that you're watching from last night, where the Gushew rink took down Brad Jacobs' team. That's always delightful. And then earlier today, the St. John's skip led his crew to an easy victory, 9-4 win over Matt Dunstone.
Round robin curling action continues this week, with the playoffs set to hit the ice on the weekend.
Well, we're seeing that rain continuing, some warm temperatures as well for the island, but on the other side of this front, there's some cold air, and that's going to lead to some freezing rain. I'll get into those details when I come back.
Of course. You know, this is a democracy, for God's sake. This is not Russia. This is nothing about Debbie, Pat, and Brady. This is about our democracy.
Controversy in Kippens. Some people say the mayor should not have been booted out by the province.
Time for a look at the weather, and it's amazing that the rain is still coming down out on the southwest coast. We saw Peter Cowan out in it earlier. It's just going and going.
Lots of moisture being funneled up, certainly seeing it. And like we said earlier, showed you those rainfall amounts, even, you know, to parts of Labrador. So we are seeing lots of moisture and lots of mild air as well through parts of the province. Let's take a look at those numbers as the daytime highs today. 8 degrees in St. John's, didn't reach double digits, but Deer Lake, Badger, Stephenville, all seeing those temperatures reaching 14 degrees today. Now, obviously, those temperatures are a little bit cooler for Labrador, -4 in Lab City today. But these temperatures are some of the warmest, or are the warmest temperatures that we saw in Canada today. Taking a look at what's happening out west and through Alberta, you're seeing those temperatures into the minus double digits, -18 in Fort McMurray right now. So very different story. The reason for that is the jet stream. We're seeing that cold air down and then that dip in the jet stream bringing all of that mild air and all of that moisture to parts of Canada this afternoon. And taking a look at the temperatures right now, they haven't budged too much. Still 14 degrees in Deer Lake, 13 in Stephenville, 10 in Burgeo at the moment. And then again, those temperatures much cooler for Labrador. You are generally, most of Labrador is on the cold side of that stationary front. This ridge of high pressure bringing some of that cooler air down for most of Labrador. And then with the rest of the area of low pressure is still funneling some of that moisture up there, but the numbers have come down quite significantly. So only expecting another probably 20, maybe even 30 millimeters, but that will fall in the higher elevations for the southwest. Much different story in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Winter wonderland today. 15 centimeters of snow fell. Paul West shared that photo with us today. And that's all going to change tonight over to some freezing rain and eventually some rain as we head through the evening hours tomorrow. For parts of Labrador. Churchill falls under that freezing rain warning as well. So we'll time that out for you. Looking at that front, it's going to head northwest, and that's going to bring that risk of some freezing rain with it. Just skirting Happy Valley Goose Bay. Like I said yesterday, you're straddling that line. Looks like you stayed on the cold side of it, but the freezing rain potential will move in tonight. And then as it continues to track further northwest, you're going to get into some of that milder air, so it should change over to rain. Likely the higher elevations may still see some freezing rain, and it could be a significant amount of freezing rain. And then the further west you get towards Churchill Falls and the valley, you are looking at snow tonight, and then that will eventually transition to some freezing rain as we get into tomorrow morning and then continue through the afternoon as well. Otherwise, the rain will eventually taper off. However, we are looking at some fog patches developing for a good chunk of the island tonight. Temperatures are going to stay mild, 10 to 11 degrees, not going to move much for St. John's either. The winds will eventually ease. We're looking at easterlies or southeasterlies through the night tonight, about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. But a cold night for Lab City, down to -16 under clear skies. The rest of Labrador, at least the southeast, looking at those showers and mild temperatures as well tonight. So there's that freezing rain potential. It'll continue to track north and west with some snow for northern Labrador as well. It could pick up about 5, maybe 10 centimeters of snow. But overall, we're looking at that easterly flow across the island, and that means that we'll likely see some RDF for central and eastern areas of the island, eventually tapering to showers or drizzle for the west coast. You may even see a few peaks of sun in the afternoon, mainly towards the northern peninsula, but overall it will be a gray day. And then some more showers will move in as the day goes on into the evening hours for the majority of the island and southeastern portions of Labrador as well. Now, temperatures tomorrow are going to stay mild in the double digits, 10 degrees. Winds are going to pick up again. They'll be out of the southeast, 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. Clarenville sitting around 11 degrees. Bonavista looking at about 9. The further towards central we get, we're still sitting in those double digits. Same thing along the south coast. Harbor Breton sitting around 12 degrees as your afternoon high tomorrow. But as you can see, those gray skies, showers, and potential for fog will continue. Corner Brook sitting around 14 degrees, Port aux Basques around 12, and then those winds will die down around as well, about easterlies 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. We're going to stay in the single digits on the plus side of the mercury for southeastern Labrador tomorrow. Generally light winds, and then this is where things start to get a little bit messy. That freezing rain potential. You'll see that in Lab City as well into the overnight, but I will get into those details when I come back.
Well, there's some division in the small west coast town of Kippens after the province took the extraordinary step of removing, essentially firing the mayor of that town, Debbie Brake-Patten. The Minister for Municipal Affairs, Krista Lynn Howell, made that decision after an investigation upheld allegations that the mayor bullied and harassed an individual who works for the town. But the report is heavily redacted, large sections completely blacked out, so it's hard to tell exactly what the mayor allegedly did. Now, one resident supports the mayor and says the province has overreacted and interfered with municipal democracy. Graham Armour joins us now from Kippens. So, Mr. Armour, what are your concerns about the province's decision to get rid of your mayor?
Hi, Anthony. My concerns are mainly in the area of legality. We're guaranteed by our Canadian Constitution and Bill of Rights that we have rights to vote in or vote out mayors and councillors and those who, anybody that stands for election. It's the voters that decide, not some minister in St. John's, with all due respect.
But, you know, if an investigator concluded that you're mayor, and we don't know the facts of the case, but apparently the allegations that she bullied somebody in your town hall, if that's the case, then what choice does the government have? Do they just sort of let somebody stay who may have done these things, whatever they are?
Well, I do not believe that it's legal to remove a duly elected municipal official from her post without some trial chart. She didn't commit a crime. Where's the trial? Where's the evidence? There's nothing. And I believe that you have to, under the law, I'm not a lawyer, but under the law, you have to have some pretty serious stuff to remove an elected official. And I think she's overstepped, the minister that is, I believe she's overstepped her bounds.
Let me ask you a question about this. So obviously there's some troubles, according to you, going on. What's really going on here?
Well, it's a dysfunctional council, a completely toxic workspace. And, you know, they're blaming all this on the mayor. Good God, ask any of the residents. You know, Tony, this was an investigation that nobody knew about. I didn't know anything about it till this order comes out on Friday. And all of a sudden, kaboom. So everybody's angry here. You know, we don't know anything about this. And it is incumbent upon us, the electors, to make sure that we understand that this is illegal. You can't do that.
Now, one of the repercussions of all this also is that the now former mayor, she's not allowed to run you have an election.
That's correct.
Right, in a couple of weeks, right?
Well, the election is scheduled. It's been delayed because of this so-called investigation.
Right, the end of the month, I should say.
I tell you what the investigation is. It's a harassment complaint, as you know. And you can't be fired for being a respondent in a harassment complaint and because you have an abrasive management style. You know, Brake-Patten attempted to light some fire under these bloody councillors. And every time she tried to get something done, there's a backlash. And as a result of that, you've got this situation now. And what they've done with this illegal order is disallow Debbie to run as a candidate in our election. We don't have any choice to make judgment on her one way or the other.
So you think,
it away from
yeah, you think this should basically be up to the voters. If they want her back, they should have her back.
Of course. You know, this is a democracy, for God's sake. This is not Russia or the United States, where you have some insane lunatic running around looking for his stolen election. This is Canada. We don't do that stuff here. This is nothing about Debbie Patten Brake. This is about our democracy. This is not personal about Debbie Brake. I would do the same thing for any mayor that was attacked like this.
All right. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony.
Now, there are only 4 pages of this 23-page report into the mayor's conduct that are actually public, so it's difficult to say how many interviews were conducted. But in a statement, the municipalities department says this was not a decision taken lightly by the department. It does reflect the seriousness of the situation. Every employee in any workplace deserves the right to work in a safe and respectful environment, free of harassment or any bullying behavior. Now, it should also mention tomorrow, coming up on Newfoundland Morning, the minister responsible, Crystalline Howell, will join Martin Jones and Bernice Hillier to discuss the situation in Kippens.
The town of Port aux Basques is cut off. People are dealing with flooding. Do they need a state of emergency here? I'll talk to the mayor coming up.
Getting back to our top story, the developing situation on the southwest coast. Our Peter Cowan and the CBC crew on the ground in Port aux Basques tonight. That town completely cut off from the rest of the island because of these road washouts. Peter.
Yeah, Anthony, we're not really going to know how things are here in town until tomorrow morning when this rain finally stops and they can properly go out and assess all the damage. But one of the questions that people here in town have been asking is, do they need a state of emergency in order to deal with this unprecedented weather and the fallout we're now dealing with? Well, I met up with the Mayor, Brian Button, this afternoon, and he walked me through what the town has been dealing with.
Well, we're still dealing with a lot of the same situations of, watching our storm systems, our storm sewers, our availability of our staff has been going around and checking on some of the residents that have been having some trouble. We've been
a lot of flooded basements.
We haven't had so many calls as which we thought we probably would have. People around here, I guess, are resilient. They're depending on themselves to getting things done. We did have several calls where we were getting some major flooding in some homes and that. We did dispatch crews out there and take care of the situation out there and give them a hand and give them some support there. And I think from my last call with them that things have been going relatively a lot better there.
So that's in town. A lot of the problem we're dealing with is outside town, being cut off by the Trans-Canada Highway. How much of a concern is that for you?
It's probably one of our biggest concerns now. And as I said yesterday, it was probably something that I was fearful of. Those fears have become reality. We have some major washouts now. I think there's 3-4 now that it's been total washouts, which is cutting us off from the rest of the province. That becomes a big issue, especially when not all of these washouts have been assessed yet, so we don't know just how bad they are and how long it's going to take to get things open. But in saying that, I guess from our perspective, we've been having various conference calls now with emergency services and discussing just those actual situations.
So one of the questions is, do you need a state of emergency in order to deal with this situation?
That was probably one of the calls that we did make, discussing a state of emergency and calling a state of emergency. A state of emergency in our community would be if our resources are maxed out, our staff can no longer contend with what's going on. That's not the case. Our staff has been able to maintain and stay on top of things. So a state of emergency for the town itself, we're not at. For outside of the town, you can possibly look at a state of emergency for that, but we haven't declared that because we've had conference calls, like I said, with emergency services. They're well aware of what's happening out there. We're looking at alternate plans on things that can be done, especially when it comes to emergency services and transporting people out. If we had called a state of emergency today, right now, at this moment, it wouldn't change how things are, just because of the weather at this very moment. But if that weather changes and it frees up and we can get some helicopter support in this area, there's plans going into place that could alleviate any fears that we have of if there is an emergency and we need to transport somebody out of here.
Well, good luck with the cleanup and hopefully Mother Nature cooperates.
Thank you, and I hope it does.
They've actually been using helicopters to bring people in about 45 minutes or so. We had one fly overhead, and we're told that it's people who were trapped between washouts, and the RCMP arranged in order to get them airlifted into the community. At least they're in a bigger center. And tomorrow, hopefully the weather will improve, so helicopters, if they're needed, can get in and out, but also so that crews can really start to get to work in order to fix those washouts and restore the connection between here and the rest of the province. Reporting live in Port aux Basques, I'm Peter Cowan for Here and Now.
Well, staying with this story, one man in Doyle's had a harrowing experience while driving last night. The road suddenly collapsed underneath his truck and he barely made it across. I spoke with Ryan Moore this afternoon while he was at work at the local home hardware store. I asked him to describe what happened and how he's doing today.
Oh, I'm not too bad. A little stiff from the seatbelt, I think, is what happened. Something got me in the chest. I'm guessing it was a seatbelt. I was actually just coming here over to the work home hardware actually to check on the leaks and all that good stuff, and I just come around the corner and something didn't really look right with the road. It looked like water was rushing over it before I even had a chance to even do anything or realize what was going on, and there was just a layer of asphalt and the pipe washed out from under the road. So when I went over it, all the pavement broke away and I somehow bounced through it.
It looks like it was such a close call.
Very close. I didn't even realize what happened till I went back once I got a ride to come pick me up, and went back with a flashlight and looked. Like, I thought it was just a little ditch or something that the front tire dug into. But I don't know, it's probably a 25-foot wide hole by about 15 feet deep. Honestly, it happened that fast. I just more or less said, this is going to hurt, braced, and rode it out.
How hard did it hit?
Well, it's hard enough that the stuff that was in the back, in the box of the truck, ended up in the back seat. Airbags went off and all that good stuff. And I think I made it across, and just before, maybe it dropped, and then my tire, I think, hooked the hard ground, which tore the tire off, and I think maybe the tire went under the truck, and that's kind of what picked me up and got me back up on hard ground. It's pretty much, I'd say she's parts now going to a scrapyard. The truck itself held up amazingly, but the tires and axles and stuff kind of left the truck.
So do you think it's a write-off?
Oh, yeah, I would imagine. I'm thinking, I don't know for sure if the frame is bent, but, I mean, something had to bend. It hit pretty hard.
Did I hear correctly that you actually sold that truck that very same day?
Not that day, but yeah, someone was supposed to come pick it up this week, but then the storm happened, so it kind of got delayed. So it wasn't sold, but they were coming to pick it up.
That's gotta hurt.
I mean, it hurt just selling it. I like that truck, but it hurt even worse beating it up.
Well, it's kind of scary to think about what could have happened, but have you gone there in your mind? Have you thought about what might have happened?
I don't know. I just don't really think about it. It could have been way worse, I'm sure. If I would have went down in that hole and brought up in a straight 15-foot high wall, I'm sure things would have been a lot worse.
So you're at the hardware store today, you're interacting with people. What are you hearing from your customers about how people are making out in the storm?
Mostly just from people that's never ever had basement troubles before. Now their basements are flooding, and people coming for sump pumps. A few calls for like culverts and in like plastic cement stuff, like roof patch and stuff like that. They're just more or less trying to hunker down and keep their houses dry.
And how about you? We know the fate of your poor truck, but what about your property, your home?
It's wet, but it's dry inside. I got pretty much a river going on. Like, I live on a hill just off the river, and I got a river pretty much going down each side of my house.
He's one of Carboneer's best-kept secrets, Heber McGurk, and the stories of his lifetime. Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
The storm that has hit the Port aux Basques region has also pummeled parts of Nova Scotia. A massive amount of rain has washed out roads and flooded basements. The hardest hit area is northern Cape Breton, where some communities are still cut off tonight. Matthew Moore reports on one government employee who was swept away when a road collapsed.
Just about to get to Morns Lake, there was no road. I went down into the wash.
Davy Fraser was driving his truck last night. He was on the road, stopping people from entering dangerous areas with washouts. Then, when he started driving, a section of road collapsed beneath his truck.
And before I knew it, the truck was demolished, the airbags were up, and I was trying to catch my breath.
Fraser escaped with only minor injuries. Once daylight broke, it became clear he got lucky.
And then I would say within minutes, the truck had washed away.
For several hours, roads on the south and north side of Ingonish were being washed away or blocked. No one could get in or out. This morning, crews made it so drivers could get to Sydney. Larry Doffany is the local councillor. He says he was expecting the storm to be just like any other.
And when I was driving around, I guess, lunchtime or whatever, and it was like, oh, things are normal. I had a little bit of flooding, not bad. But within an hour, things just drastically changed. And I'd say by 2 or 3 o'clock, it was amazing here how much flooding was in the area. By 4 or 5 o'clock, it was, we were seeing landslides up around the clam flats in Ingonish Beach. Water was just everywhere. Basements were flooding, roads were washing out. It just grew at a proportion in a short period of time.
Luckily, Doffany believes there wasn't much damage done in the town, other than a few flooded basements and washed out driveways. Further north, another small community is cut off.
But right now it's quite a flow there, so we're cut off from the rest of the world.
Murdoch Burton shot some footage this morning showing where his road used to be. He estimated about a dozen families are cut off from the main road. Burton says his family has enough supplies, but he worries if there was an emergency.
But we often wonder, if something happened or, how do we get out? So we hope there's no emergency or anything like that.
The province says nearly 30 roads are still impassable. There's no timeline to get them all open again, but it won't be a quick fix. Matthew Moore, CBC News, Ingonish.
NASA is making a new effort to make history, and it's a mission that mimics the plot of a Hollywood sci-fi adventure because the agency has sent a rocket to deliberately smash into a space rock. Yes, you heard that right. NASA hopes to prove that it can target asteroids and other space objects that could collide with Earth. The CBC's Chris Glover has the story.
And liftoff of the Falcon 9 and DART.
NASA is dubbing this test mission the first to defend planet Earth, and on board that rocket that blasted off overnight was what's known as a Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART for short. And NASA's promotional video for it certainly builds the drama.
In a galaxy where asteroids have pummeled planets for billions of years, now one planet strikes back.
All right, now let me dig into the plot of this mission a bit more. The target is the moon Dimorphos that orbits an asteroid known as Didymos. It poses no threat to planet Earth, but NASA is interested in it because asteroids of its size certainly could be a threat to the planet at some point. So the plan is to have the DART spacecraft ram into Dimorphos and basically give it a nudge to throw it off course, a method of deflection that's known as kinetic impact. But there won't be an outcome for quite a while. DART is going to be traveling just outside Earth's orbit until the end of September next year. And that's when Didymos and Dimorphos are expected to be within striking distance, roughly 11 million kilometers from Earth. Now, this is the first time this technique is being tested, but planetary astronomer Andrew Rivkin says there are other options for Earthlings to protect the planet from asteroids, including a nuclear device.
to detonate nearby a threatening asteroid, vaporize part of it, and deflect it that way. But we obviously want to have as many different tools in our toolbox as we can, because we're going to be faced with different scenarios, and so we want to make sure we have the right tool for the right job.
With this test mission, researchers are going to see how well it works by using telescopes on Earth so they can be prepared in case an asteroid in the future really does pose a threat. Chris Glover, CBC News, Washington.
Whereas Fat Cat or the Black Sheep, very fortunate to still have this room.
There's a community in the Black Sheep.
I remember it vividly, actually, the first day I held sticks.
I want to capture the gigs. I want to capture the facial expressions.
Creating the song that you want to hear.
That made me feel better listening to that. And maybe I could write my feelings out and see how I like that.
It's really all about the music.
We've seen some amazing video from the southwest coast this evening with all of that rain coming down, and I guess it's hard for crews, as Peter Cowan mentioned, to get out and do the cleanup while that rain is still coming down. So how much longer is it going to last?
Yeah, it's not only the rain that's coming down, it's the rain that's already come down, and then it's got to come down the mountain. So there's that we also need to think about. We're still looking at some rainy conditions. It will nowhere near what we're seeing. It'll taper to showers or drizzle for the most part. But let's take a look at the future tracker to show you that. So it's the same area of low pressure that is going to affect us, and it's going to continue to as we see those winds shift more easterly, and it's going to push that colder air further north. So we're starting to get into the potential for some freezing rain overnight Thursday for Lab West, and then same thing for the northern portion of Labrador. Otherwise, the rest of the province should actually be in the warmer air. So everything that does fall should fall as rain or drizzle through the overnight and into the beginning of Friday, and then it's going to stay unsettled with the chance of showers and then some fog patches as well. By the time we get into the afternoon, we may start to see a little bit of a break in that cloud cover. It'll be fairly sparse, but that chance still there. And then generally stay unsettled as we get into Saturday as well. That area of low pressure still very much in place, and that means that the milder temperatures are going to stick around as well. Now, as we get through Saturday, another push of moisture will move in, and we're looking at that chance of some showers and or rain, particularly for eastern portions of the island. And eventually we will get into some clearing skies Saturday night, at least for some portion of Saturday night for areas in the south. So as far as tomorrow goes, or Friday goes rather, there's those mild temperatures, 9 to 11 degrees. Port aux Basques will hover around 8 degrees. Like I said, I have that sun icon in there for you potentially. And then staying unsettled, but on the plus side for pretty much across the province, 1 to 2 degrees for Lab West in the north. Otherwise, about 8 degrees for Cartwright for your Friday. And then as we get into Saturday, similar forecast as far as those temperatures go, because nothing really changes as far as that system. But I do have a few more sun icons in there for Saturday. Likely going to stay cloudy in the east though. St. John should hover around 11 degrees with rain in the forecast for Saturday. Sunday and Monday, that's when we should see some sunshine. Temperatures will still stay relatively mild. This is above where we should be sitting this time of year. 8 to 9 degrees it looks like for Monday, Sunday and Monday. And then for central Newfoundland, look at that temperature dipping Sunday night. Chance we could see a few flurries in the mix. By Monday, those temperatures will climb back up though, and what does fall should fall as rain. However, not the case for western Newfoundland. Some flurries will be in the mix for you as we start the week. And then for eastern Labrador rather, flurries for Sunday, and then Monday looks like it should clear off -2, and then western Labrador will still stay gray with the chance of flurries. Now this photo, we had a few of them from Nain, the sunset. Wow. This is a great shot. Wilson captured that. Obviously a nice sunset happening there. Yeah, if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.
Okay, cloudy nerd question, Ashley.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are those?
Those are cirrus clouds.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Ugh.
Well, there's probably some mid-level clouds in there too. It's kind of hard to tell, but the mid-level clouds would have been those wispy ones, I'd say.
Okay.
Wow, it looks fantastic. Like, it looks almost like running water in the sky.
Does. Yeah.
Which I guess it kind of is. Moisture.
You're absolutely right.
Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
See you tomorrow.
Good night.